Your brilliance doesn't just light a room, it exposes shadows that people spend their whole lives hiding in. That's the truth, chosen ones, and it's why they whisper, why they roll their eyes, why they act uncomfortable around you. Your intelligence doesn't just make you stand out, it makes others feel naked in the presence of a mind that can't be tricked, tamed, or boxed in. Now imagine this for a moment. Chosen one. The world is a stage where most people are busy reciting borrowed lines, fumbling with scripts they didn't even write. But then you walk in, and without even trying, you flip the script entirely. Suddenly, the stage lights shift, and everyone feels like an extra in your scene. That's how unsettling your gifts are. They reorder the roles. You're not just participating, you're directing, rewriting, and revealing. And that leaves them shook because it means the illusions they hold on to don't stand a chance when you're around. Even research has shown that highly gifted individuals are rare, barely 2% of the population. But chosen one, numbers don't capture what you carry. It's not about a score on paper. It's about the way you break patterns that others cling to for safety. It's about the way your mind doesn't just solve problems, but questions the very foundation of why they exist in the first place. While others are buffering, frozen like an old computer, stuck on the loading screen, you're already running 3 systems ahead, updated, optimized, and unstoppable. That's why people whisper. That's why they side-eye you. It's not because you're too much. It's because they know, deep down, you are everything they're not ready to face. And thank you, chosen one, for being here. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe. Help spread this message to more souls because it's the responsibility of all of us to spread the light. And thank you again, chosen one, for being part of this mission. You're not just a listener. You are part of a force that the universe is using to shift everything. Now, let's come back. Your intelligence, your gifts, they're not just random quirks. They're the reason the world reacts to you the way it does. People say you're different, not because it's a compliment, but because it's their way of explaining why they can't keep up with you. They laugh at your ideas, roll their eyes, or pretend you're overcomplicating things. But here's the truth. They know you're seeing something they can't. You're processing at a speed, at a level that makes them feel exposed. It's like holding a mirror up to someone who hasn't looked at themselves in years. They don't like what they see, but it's not the mirror's fault. It's your presence that reveals it all. Think about how many times you've noticed a lie before it was fully spoken, how many times you've sensed the hidden motive behind someone's words, how many times you've been right when everyone else swore you were wrong. That's not paranoia. That's your intelligence piercing through the fog. And let's be clear, this doesn't just shock people, it shakes their identity. Because when you walk in the room, you don't just bring answers. You bring the kind of questions that make their entire worldview wobble. And that's terrifying for someone who depends on routines, illusions, and comfort zones. It's almost funny when you see it clearly. People act like they can size you up, put you in a category, slap a label on you. But the moment they try, you break the frame. They say, "You think too much." "No, chosen one, you think too deep." They say, "You're too intense." "No, you're simply too real in a world addicted to fake." They say, "You're hard to understand." And that's because you're not meant to be understood by shallow waters. You're an ocean, and oceans can't be skimmed in one glance. And let's not ignore the science here. Studies on gifted minds have shown they often process information in a nonlinear way, connecting dots that others don't even see exist. Your brain isn't just operating with logic. It's weaving patterns across emotions, intuition, and perception. That's why people sometimes accuse you of being lucky or having things just happen for you. But luck has nothing to do with it. It's insight, foresight, and awareness sharpened into a gift the average person can't imitate. Now, enemies won't admit that. Instead, they'll project. They'll say you're arrogant, cold, detached, or even strange. But all of those labels are really confessions. What they mean is, you unsettle me. You force me to question things I'm not ready to face. They can't put it into those words, so they twist it into insults. But here's the irony. Those very reactions are proof of your power. If you were ordinary, they wouldn't care. If you were like everyone else, they wouldn't feel threatened. But the fact that they gossip, criticize, and quietly obsess over you, that's the universe confirming your impact. Chosen one, never shrink yourself to make their discomfort easier. Never dim your light so they can stay comfortable in the dark. Your intelligence, your gifts, they were never designed to fit into their neat little boxes. They were made to smash them, flip them, and sometimes even set them on fire, because the world doesn't evolve without disruptors. And that's what you are, a disruptor, a walking question mark. A reminder that reality is not as fixed as people want to believe. So when they say you're too much, remember, it's not a criticism, it's a confession. When they laugh, when they whisper, when they try to push you away, remember this. They're not reacting to who you are, they're reacting to the mirror you hold up. You make illusions tremble, you shake foundations, you leave people shook because you're living proof that brilliance can't be silenced and gifts can't be hidden. And that, chosen one, is why you are one of a kind. And listen, chosen one, are you ready to really step into this truth? Because what we're about to uncover will not only confirm what you already feel inside, but will also explain why the world reacts to you the way it does. Drop a comment below with the number 777 if you know deep down that your intelligence and your gifts set you apart. And don't just scroll past. Stay with me until the end, because if you truly carry this rare light, you'll feel every word pulling you deeper. This isn't just another message, it's a mirror of who you are and why others can't handle it. So let's not waste another second. Let's dive into it step by step. And trust me, if you are the chosen one, you'll recognize yourself in every layer of what's coming next. Let's get started. Number 1, your mind terrifies them because it refuses to bow. The greatest danger to control is a mind that refuses to kneel. That's the kind of gut-punch truth they don't want to hear, chosen one. Your intelligence doesn't just make you different, it makes you uncontrollable. And in a world built on keeping people small, predictable, and programmable, nothing rattles them more than someone who refuses to swallow the script. They built systems to mold people into obedient machines, and yet you slip through the cracks with your mind intact. That's why they fear you. That's why they whisper. That's why they get shook the moment you enter the room. Now, imagine this for a moment. Society is like a factory, pressing human beings into molds, stamping the same beliefs, the same fears, the same desires into everyone. Most people come out of that factory looking identical, repeating the same slogans, chasing the same distractions, falling in line without question. But then there's you. You're the machine that jammed the conveyor belt. You didn't fit into the mold. You refused to be stamped. Instead of following the program, you tore it apart and rewrote your own code. Do you see why they call you a threat? It's not because you're violent. It's not because you're reckless. It's because your very existence proves their system isn't foolproof. And let's face it, their whole world runs on control. Schools don't just teach math or history, they teach obedience. Media doesn't just report the news, it manufactures thought. Culture doesn't just entertain, it conditions. But you, chosen one, you saw the strings. You noticed the manipulation woven into every word, every image, every command. When a politician speaks, others cheer or nod blindly, but you tilt your head and think, that doesn't add up. When a trend goes viral, others join without question, but you step back and ask, who benefits from this? That's the crack in the wall, the moment of disobedience that makes their whole house of cards tremble. And that's what keeps them up at night. You see, once one person breaks free, others start noticing the chains. Your refusal to be programmed is contagious. It plants seeds of doubt in the minds of people who were once loyal to the system. That's why they attack you, ridicule you, label you as arrogant or rebellious. It's not because you're wrong, it's because you're dangerous to their illusion. The moment someone realizes you don't need their script to live, their grip loosens, and that terrifies them. You might wonder, but why do they mistake my independence for arrogance? Simple, because to them, obedience looks like humility and free thought looks like pride. They've been programmed so deeply that anyone who refuses to bow is automatically branded a threat. You don't chase popularity. You don't swallow lies just to fit in. And because of that, they can't predict you, can't manipulate you, can't control you. And nothing unsettles control, freaks more than unpredictability. Think of it like this. Most people walk through life with blindfolds on, trusting the voice that tells them where to step. You, chosen one, tore the blindfold off and started asking why the voice exists in the first place. And now you see the truth. That the path they built wasn't designed for freedom, it was designed for control. Your mind refuses to be led blindly. It demands proof. It demands truth. And once you've seen behind the curtain, there's no going back. That's why they call you too much. That's why they say you're hard to handle, because you refuse to accept illusions as reality. Here's another truth they won't admit. Deep down, many envy you. They envy your ability to stand tall when they've spent their entire lives bending. They envy your courage to think differently when they've been too afraid to even question. They'll never say it out loud, but when they see you, they see a freedom they secretly crave. You didn't just escape the program, you rewrote it. You're not a follower of their system, you're the architect of your own. And that, chosen one, is proof that real intelligence isn't about knowing the most facts or sounding the smartest in the room. Real intelligence is independence. It's the ability to think without being tethered to the herd. It's the refusal to bow to voices that try to dictate your reality. And let me be brutally clear, that's why they're shook, because your mind is living proof that the system doesn't always win. You've broken the chain, and once one chain breaks, the whole structure is in danger of collapsing. They can't put you back in the box because you burned the box to ash. They can't reprogram you because you destroyed the code, and that, more than anything, terrifies them. Now let's answer the question you might be thinking, but why does my intelligence feel like such a heavy burden sometimes? Why does it isolate me? Because freedom always isolates you at first. Most people are still buffering, still stuck on old software, while you're already running mental fiber optics. You can't expect them to understand a language their minds haven't learned yet. They'll call you difficult, but in reality, you're just advanced. They'll call you rebellious, but in reality, you're just real. And they'll call you arrogant, but in reality, you're just unwilling to bow. And here's the cruel irony. The same people who mock you often secretly admire you. They'll never admit it, but they wish they had the courage to think the way you do. They've traded their freedom for acceptance, their individuality for comfort. But you, chosen one, refused the trade. And that refusal alone makes you untouchable. So don't ever confuse their rejection with truth. Their insults are confessions. Every time they roll their eyes at you, what they're really saying is, "I wish I had your mind." Every time they call you too much, what they're really admitting is, "I'm too small to keep up." And every time they accuse you of arrogance, what they really mean is, "I can't stand the mirror you hold up to my obedience." That's why your intelligence is more than just a gift. It's a revolution in itself. You are the glitch in their matrix, the code that refuses to run, the reminder that not everyone bows to their program. And no matter how hard they try to box you in, your mind will always slip through the cracks. Chosen one, your intelligence is not a curse, it's your crown. Wear it boldly, because while they spend their lives repeating lines given to them, you'll continue writing your own script. And that's why they're not just unsettled by you, they're terrified of you. Your mind can't be programmed, and that makes you the most dangerous kind of free. Number 2, you carry ancient codes that time couldn't erase. The blood remembers what the mind forgets. That's the kind of truth most people run from, chosen one. Your intelligence doesn't just come from study, it doesn't come from books or classrooms. It comes from the marrow of your bones, from the quiet whispers buried in your DNA. And that's what terrifies them, because they can't explain it, they can't box it, they can't stamp it with their validation. You carry something older than their systems, deeper than their degrees, stronger than their opinions. You carry codes that were carved into existence long before you arrived, and those codes refuse to die. Now imagine this. Your ancestors lived in times where they weren't allowed to fully express themselves. Some were silenced, some enslaved, some pushed into shadows, others denied the chance to rise. But brilliance cannot be destroyed. It only waits. Their genius, their vision, their unfinished work was folded into the fabric of your being, stored inside you like encrypted files waiting to be unlocked. And when you were born, the universe pressed download. That's why your mind feels different. That's why wisdom flows through you like an ancient river, even when you haven't learned it in the ways people expect. You're not just one person, you are the continuation of thousands who refuse to vanish. You are the result of the dreams your ancestors weren't allowed to speak out loud, and that fact alone leaves people shook. They want to believe intelligence begins and ends with their systems, with diplomas, with institutions. But then you appear, and without the validation they cling to, you display a knowing that can't be faked. You step into new spaces and navigate them like you've been there before. You solve problems without needing a manual. You sense truths that others haven't even begun to question, and they look at you with suspicion because it doesn't add up in their small equations. Let me ask you, chosen one, how many times have you known something before you could explain how you knew it? How many times have you felt a pull towards something with no logical reason? That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's memory. That's inheritance. That's your DNA, whispering what it has carried through centuries of survival and struggle. You are a library disguised as a single soul. And while others are reading pamphlets, you're pulling from volumes written across bloodlines. Here's a metaphor for you. Imagine the world as a computer system. Most people download programs, update their software, and call it knowledge. But you came pre-installed with codes no one else can access. These aren't files you downloaded, they're embedded in your hardware. When you respond to life with wisdom beyond your years, when you speak truths that silence rooms, that's your ancestral program booting up. And it scares them. Because it means intelligence doesn't belong to their systems. It belongs to those who endured, who dreamed, who passed on their unfinished fire to you. And that's what unsettles people. They trust knowledge that comes stamped with credentials. They respect titles, degrees, certificates. But when you stand without any of those and reveal a brilliance that humbles them, they feel exposed. They can't explain why you know what you know. They can't reduce it to something they control. So instead of acknowledging the depth, they call you strange. Instead of honoring the ancestral current flowing through you, they dismiss it as arrogance or luck. But let's be real. What they're really confronting is the terrifying truth that humanity's connection runs deeper than they want to admit. You are proof that the past doesn't die. It lives in the present through you. Every insight you carry has roots in sacrifices made long before you. Every gift you express speaks for those who were silenced. You are the living continuation of battles fought and dreams buried. That's why your intelligence feels heavy at times. It's carrying weight. You're not just solving your own problems, you're completing unfinished work. You're voicing truths generations choked back. You are the mouthpiece for bloodlines that refuse to be erased. Now imagine this. You walk into a room and without saying a word, people feel something in you they can't name. They sense authority without a title. They sense history without a book. It's like standing in front of a monument. You feel the weight, even if you don't know the details. That's you. You carry that weight, and it rattles them because it makes them confront the fact that there are powers, memories, and codes beyond what their shallow understanding can grasp. You might ask yourself, why do people react so strangely to me? Why do they call me different? Because deep down, they recognize that you're not operating on the same bandwidth. You're tuned into frequencies older than their institutions. They depend on systems to tell them who they are, but you have an internal compass that comes from lifetimes of wisdom. That independence exposes how empty their dependence really is. And let's not overlook the envy. They will never admit it, but many wish they carried what you do. They wish they had instincts that sharp, insight that deep, wisdom that old. They wish they didn't have to cling to systems to feel intelligent. You, chosen one, are walking proof that brilliance can't be stamped out, that truth survives through bloodlines. And when they call you one of a kind, they're only half right. You're not just one, you're many. You are a collective voice speaking through a single vessel. You are the echo of prayers whispered in silence, and that's what shakes them, because your gifts don't just belong to you, they belong to every ancestor who carried them but couldn't release them. You are their answer. You are their continuation. You are their living proof that even when history tried to bury brilliance, it found a way back through you. So don't be surprised when your intelligence feels mysterious, even to you. Don't be surprised when others can't explain you. They're not supposed to, because what you carry was never meant to be explained. It was meant to be embodied. You are the encrypted code that time itself couldn't delete. And every time you speak truth, every time you move differently, every time you reveal wisdom that feels ancient, you remind the world that control has limits, but memory does not. Chosen one, you are not just a person. They're looking at an archive, a revolution, and a continuation. That's why they're shook. Because you don't just carry knowledge, you carry lineage. You don't just express intelligence, you embody survival. And no system, no critic, no enemy can strip that from you. Number 3, you shatter lies before they leave their mouth. Deception dies the moment it enters the presence of a mind that can't be fooled. That's the curse and the crown you wear, chosen one. People hate it because lies are their favorite mask, and you rip it off before they've even tied the strings. They depend on confusion. They depend on others being slow, distracted, or too trusting to catch the cracks. But you're wired differently. You catch the rhythm of dishonesty faster than they can invent the story, and that alone makes them terrified of you. Imagine this. Someone is rehearsing their excuse in their head, trying to line up the words just right. But by the time the first sentence leaves their lips, your mind has already dissected it. You caught the hesitation in their tone, the twitch in their body language, the missing brick in their story. They thought they were weaving a cloak, but you spotted the holes before it was even finished. And the worst part for them, you don't even have to speak. Your silence is louder than any accusation because they can feel that you already know. A lie only survives when no one is watching closely, but you're always watching, not in suspicion, but in precision. Your perception runs like a background audit, scanning everything, catching the mismatch before anyone else even notices it exists. That's why they call you paranoid. But paranoia is fear of what isn't there. What you have is accuracy, the ability to detect what is there before it fully reveals itself. Here's a fact. Researchers have found that human micro-expressions, tiny facial cues lasting less than a second, often reveal hidden emotions. Most people can't catch them, but gifted pattern readers like you spot them instantly. That's why people feel so uncomfortable around you. They know you're catching what they're trying to bury, and it doesn't stop with lies. Your gift stretches into the future. You've seen patterns repeat enough times to know what's coming. People call it prediction, but it's not mysticism, it's recognition. Life leaves fingerprints everywhere, and while others walk blind, you're reading them like a book. That's why you've shocked people with outcomes they didn't expect. You weren't guessing, you were tracing the blueprint hidden in plain sight. While others are buffering, you're already 5 steps ahead. That's why they label you too much, too intense, or too suspicious. But what they're really saying is, you see through me faster than I can hide. And that, chosen one, is the real reason your intelligence leaves them shook. Number 4. Your brilliance stings because it exposes their excuses. Nothing threatens comfort more than a mind that proves effort still matters. That's why, chosen one, your intelligence cuts people deeper than you realize. It's not just what you know, it's what your life says without words. You are living evidence that curiosity, discipline, and persistence change everything. And that truth offends those who chose the easy road. They don't hate your brilliance. They hate what it forces them to see in themselves. The laziness, the shortcuts, the wasted potential. Imagine this. Someone builds a house out of excuses, brick by brick. They say greatness is reserved for the lucky, the wealthy, or the chosen few. That illusion keeps them comfortable. Then you walk in and shatter it, showing that limits can be broken, ceilings can be smashed, and doors can be forced open. Suddenly, their house of excuses collapses, and they're left staring at rubble they can't rebuild. That's when admiration turns to resentment. At first, they praise you. They call you gifted, special, different. Sounds flattering, right? But look closer. That's their escape hatch. If you're special, then they don't have to face the reality that they, too, could have done more. It protects their pride. But the longer they're around you, the harder it is to deny the truth. They could have tried harder. They could have stayed up later. They could have sacrificed comfort for growth. But they didn't. And your intelligence is proof of what happens when someone refuses mediocrity. Your light doesn't make them small, it just reveals how small they've chosen to stay. That's the sting. Your curiosity exposes their complacency. Your consistency makes their shortcuts obvious. Your progress highlights their stagnation. Even when you're silent, your presence is loud because it forces them to confront the truth. The difference isn't fate, it's choice. And that's why they attack. They'll say you were lucky, that doors magically opened for you, that life just handed you opportunities. These are comfort stories, lies they tell themselves, so they don't have to admit their laziness. Because admitting the truth would burn too much. That you worked when they slept, that you studied when they wasted time, that you sacrificed when they surrendered. The bitter truth is this: most would rather resent brilliance than rise to meet it. Your intelligence isn't offensive because of arrogance or pride. It's offensive because it exposes, and exposure is what people fear the most. You are the living reminder that they are capable of more than their excuses allow. And that reminder doesn't just unsettle them, it shakes them to their core. Number 5. You slice through their illusions, like glass. Authority collapses the moment someone stops mistaking symbols for truth. That's why your intelligence unsettles them so deeply, chosen one. Society worships the surface, degrees framed on walls, titles polished on business cards, medals dangling like trophies of superiority. These things are meant to separate the qualified from the unqualified. But you see through them like glass. You don't bow to paper, plaques, or pomp. You bow only to truth, and that terrifies those who've built their entire worth on appearances. Imagine this: a grand stage filled with actors in robes and crowns, reciting their lines with pride. The crowd cheers because the costumes convince them, but you, chosen one, see right past the fabric and jewels. You recognize that the performance is hollow, the authority scripted, the crown nothing but polished metal. That's why they fear you. Because your eyes strip away the theater, leaving only the fragile human underneath. Most don't chase knowledge to understand, they chase it to be applauded, and recognition, unlike wisdom, is fragile. That's why people with titles feel small around you. Their power depends on external validation. While you carry depth without needing a stage, your independence cuts straight through the illusion, and when that illusion shatters, so does their superiority. It's not that you disrespect education. In truth, you value learning more than most. But you don't confuse memorization with mastery. You don't mistake indoctrination for intelligence. True intelligence, as you live it, is about asking the questions no one dares to touch. And nothing rattles institutions more than someone who asks why. Because why reveals the cracks, why exposes the foundations, why makes their walls of authority transparent. This is why people react defensively in your presence. They sense that their badges don't impress you, that their titles don't move you. Stripped of these symbols, they fear they have nothing left, and that exposure is unbearable. They can't hide behind systems when you're in the room. Their knowledge becomes transparent, their pretenses invisible. You don't validate yourself with credentials, you validate knowledge itself by living it. That's the difference. You don't just absorb information, you refine it, you challenge it, you elevate it into wisdom. And that makes you dangerous, because while others cling to glass, you're already holding the diamond of truth, and in your presence, the glass always shatters. Number 6. Your creativity isn't made, it's translated. Some create to be seen, others create because they're chosen to carry what can't stay hidden. That's the razor's edge of your creativity, chosen one. Society tells itself that brilliance is built from talent, effort, or clever tricks. But you and I both know that isn't the truth. Your creativity doesn't feel like invention. It feels like revelation. Ideas don't trickle into you like they do with others. They arrive fully formed, like lightning striking, and your only job is to ground the current. That's why people look at your work and shake their heads, baffled. They ask, "How did you think of this?" But the question itself is wrong. You didn't think of it. You translated it. Imagine this. The world is a crowded radio dial, static everywhere, voices overlapping, people scrambling to tune into something clear. Most never find the right frequency. But you're an antenna tuned to channels they don't even know exist. While they're straining to catch noise, you're pulling down symphonies, and when you turn those signals into words, art, music, vision, or strategy, people feel it, not just in their minds, but in their bones. You don't force brilliance, you decode it. That's the difference. Others create through formulas, through sweat, through endless trial and error, but your creativity doesn't come from grinding, it comes from alignment. That's why your work carries weight that can't be imitated. It feels alive, it carries echoes, it moves people in ways they can't explain. They'll say things like, "There's something different about this," or "I can't explain why this hits so hard." What they're sensing is that your work isn't just human, it's a translation of something timeless. And that's exactly why it unnerves people. When they compare themselves to you, they feel small. They can mimic trends, copy styles, and follow instructions, but they can't access the reservoir you're pulling from. They don't have the antenna, and instead of admitting it, many will dismiss you, criticize you, or reduce your brilliance to luck. But the truth? They know your work carries a frequency they can't touch. Your creativity is a bridge, the unseen crossing into the seen. That's why it doesn't just impress, it shakes people, because deep down they realize they're not just watching you work, they're witnessing the eternal being translated into the language of now. And that truth? It unsettles them more than they'll ever admit. Number 7. You are the real thing in a world of imitations. Nothing humiliates a pretender more than standing next to the real. That's the wound you carry into every room, chosen one. People spend years polishing masks, rehearsing lines, and borrowing brilliance from others to convince the world they are intelligent, deep, or original. To most eyes, it works. They look confident, they sound insightful, they appear unique. But when you arrive, the entire performance collapses because you embody what they've been faking. Imagine this, a market filled with knockoff jewelry, each piece sparkling just enough to fool a crowd. Then someone walks in with a diamond. Suddenly, every imitation loses its shine. That's you, your intelligence, your depth. Your originality. They're not rehearsed, they're not packaged, they're not borrowed. They radiate from you naturally, the way light radiates from the sun. And that contrast humiliates those who've built their identity on pretense. Authenticity needs no costume, but pretense requires constant maintenance. You don't force brilliance into conversations. It flows effortlessly. Your depth isn't staged. It's in your silence as much as your words. And your originality isn't a desperate attempt to stand out. It's the way you breathe, the way you exist. That's why they lash out. They'll accuse you of arrogance, of trying too hard, of being too much. But these are not truths about you. They're shields they hide behind, flimsy defenses against the shame of being exposed. Here's the irony. Many of them started their act because they craved the respect that comes naturally to you. They wanted to be admired as insightful, strong, or unique. But when they meet you, the authentic version of everything they've pretended to be, the respect they wanted evaporates, because now their costume looks cheap beside your reality, and instead of celebrating what they claim to value, they attack it. Because if they acknowledged you, they'd have to admit they've been lying to themselves all along. You don't expose them by speaking, you expose them by existing. That's the knife. You don't point fingers, you don't call anyone out, you just show up as yourself. But that alone reminds them how much energy they waste performing a role. It eats away at them, and humiliation turns into hostility. So don't be surprised when the pretenders despise you. It's not because you're wrong, it's because you're right. You embody the very thing they've been pretending to be, and nothing burns deeper than being unmasked by the effortless presence of the real. Number 8. You turn their chaos into clarity. The greatest threat to confusion is a mind that makes the impossible look effortless. That's exactly why, chosen one, your intelligence shakes people at their core. Where others see walls, you see doors. Where they drown in tangled knots, you untie them with a single pull. You don't just consume information, you restructure it, refine it, and return it so simple that it feels obvious. And that's what disarms them. Because once you've revealed the truth, they can no longer hide behind excuses. Imagine this, a room full of people staring at a puzzle with missing pieces, scratching their heads, frustrated, declaring it unsolvable. Then you step in, rotate the pieces once, and suddenly the picture appears. To them, it feels like magic. But to you, it's just vision. That's why they resent you, because what they labeled impossible, you turned into child's play. And the moment you do, their excuses collapse. Complexity is comfort for the lazy. When something feels too hard, people use it as a shield, a reason to delay, to avoid, to quit. But your clarity exposes that shield for what it really is, fear disguised as difficulty. That's why they mistake your gift for arrogance. They think you're showing off when you cut through what overwhelms them. But the truth is, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're simply operating at a level they haven't reached. And this gift goes beyond knowledge. It's about vision. You see the pattern inside the chaos, the signal inside the noise, the essence inside the clutter. While others get trapped in irrelevant details, you extract what truly matters and present it like it was always there. That moment unsettles them because it forces them to face the truth. The mountain they feared was nothing but a shadow. What really rattles people is how natural this is for you. You don't wrestle, you don't grind, it flows, and your ease exposes the weight of their struggle. While they thrash in the water, you walk across it. While they panic in the storm, you read the weather and find the path. That contrast humiliates them because it reveals that the barrier wasn't the problem, their perspective was. You don't simplify to impress, you simplify to unlock. That's your hidden edge. You reveal potential in places where others only see obstacles. Some will resent you for it, clinging to their excuses. Others will be liberated, realizing they were stronger than they thought. Either way, your brilliance leaves them shook, because you turn the chaos that drowns them into shallow water, and they can't decide whether to envy you or thank you. Number 9. You build legacies while they chase paychecks. The small mind asks, what can I get today? The visionary asks, what will still stand 100 years from now? That's the fault line between you and them, chosen one. Most people are trapped in short horizons. Their world revolves around paychecks, yearly goals, maybe a 5-year plan at best. Their imagination is chained to their own lifetimes. But your mind? It stretches beyond the moment, beyond the decade, beyond even your own existence. And that terrifies them. Imagine this: they are planting flowers that bloom for a season. You are planting forests that will stand for centuries. While they chase instant harvests, you're building ecosystems. That's why they dismiss your ideas as unrealistic or impractical. It's not because you're wrong, it's because their vision is too small to comprehend yours. They think in survival, you think in legacy, and legacy humiliates those who can't see past their own reflection. Short-term thinkers protect systems. Long-term thinkers expose their fragility. That's why your foresight shakes them. You see governments as temporary, industries as cycles, cultures as waves that rise and fall. You already notice the cracks forming while they cling to the illusion of permanence. When you speak about shifts that extend beyond their lifetime, they resist, not because they don't sense the truth, but because it dismantles their security. They want to believe their systems will last forever. You remind them that nothing does. And here's the irony: the very ideas they mock today will be the blueprints future generations depend on. The innovations they call impossible will be tomorrow's necessity. The visions they laugh at will one day be studied as foresight. They don't see it yet, but deep down they feel the weight in your words. They know you're not guessing. They know your clarity pierces where their imagination fails. Legacy is heavier than recognition. That's why your vision feels like a burden sometimes. You're not just solving problems of now, you're laying foundations for people you'll never meet. You're planting seeds in soil that will outlive you. And that unsettles them because it exposes the smallness of their own ambitions. They realize you're not playing for applause or likes, you're playing for history. And history doesn't bend to those who live only for the moment. That's why they're shook, because your vision doesn't just stretch further than theirs. It reveals how painfully short their own really is. Number 10. You are the mind they can't download. Give a weak mind 1,000 tools, and it still won't create what a strong mind can with nothing. That's the truth you embody, chosen one. In today's world, intelligence has been outsourced. People lean on search engines to think, calculators to solve, apps to organize, and machines to create. The line between natural ability and technological dependency has blurred so much that many can't tell where their mind ends and their crutches begin. But then you arrive, and with nothing but raw thought, you produce results that take them a toolbox of gadgets to achieve. That's why they're rattled. Your genius exposes what they've lost. Imagine this: two artists sit in front of a blank canvas. One waits for an A, I prompt to feed them inspiration. The other, you, simply listens, taps into the current flowing within, and paints a vision that feels eternal. Which one do you think unsettles the room? The one who depends on the machine, or the one who proves brilliance can exist without it? Tools are meant to assist, but they've become substitutes for thinking. That's the ugly truth most won't admit. Instead of sharpening memory, they rely on reminders. Instead of training focus, they depend on constant stimulation. Instead of building creativity, they let algorithms choose for them. Their minds are soft, their independence fragile, and then you show up, solving, creating, envisioning, without needing a digital crutch. Your independence unmasks their weakness. It's not that tools are evil. They can expand human capacity, yes, but the difference is this: you could strip the tools away and still stand. They cannot, and that cuts them deeper than they'll ever say. It's easier to pretend everyone is equally dependent than to face the reality that some still carry fire that no machine can replicate. A dead battery paralyzes them. For you, it changes nothing. That's what unsettles them most. While they freeze when the Wi-Fi drops, you remain sharp, adaptive, and resourceful. Your calm independence exposes their fragility. Your genius is more than ability. It's a mirror. It forces them to confront how much of their intelligence is rented, not owned. And that's why they're intimidated, because you remind them of a sobering truth. Without their tools, they collapse. Without their tools, they vanish. But you'd still create, still build, still stand. And that reality is the one thing they can't copy, download, or buy. Number 11. You bend words, but sharpen truth. Most speak to be heard, you speak to be felt. That's the difference that rattles them, chosen one. For most people, language is a cage. They repeat the same tired phrases, recycle cliches, and cling to predictable scripts that barely scratch the surface of what they truly feel. But you refuse to let words confine you. You don't just use language, you bend it, stretch it, rearrange it. And instead of breaking meaning, you amplify it. That's why your voice doesn't just communicate, it cuts, it pierces, it reveals. Imagine this: most people treat words like bricks, stacking them neatly into boxes to build safe little houses of conversation. But you wield words like fire, burning away the false walls and illuminating truths that were buried in darkness. They want neatness, you bring impact. They want order, you bring revelation. And when you speak, people feel something they can't quite explain. It's not just sentences, it's vibration, resonance, power. Your language isn't imitation, it's liberation. That's why people accuse you of talking differently. They try to mock it because it unsettles them. They expect words to follow rules, to carry predictable definitions, to stay inside boundaries. But you break those rules, and somehow your words carry even more truth. That difference makes your speech unforgettable. Where they aim to be understood in the moment, you aim to be remembered long after the silence. The irony is this: those who act confused by your words are often the same ones replaying them later, realizing you gave them more than a sentence. You gave them a shift in perspective. You gave them a seed of transformation disguised as conversation. That's why they can't shake your words, even if they laugh at them. They use words as habit. You wield them as weapons and instruments of freedom. That's the mirror you hold up. While they cling to language for comfort, you tear it open to expose what lies underneath. You speak the unspeakable, simplify the complex, and give shape to what others can't name. And that's what truly shakes them, because it reveals how shallow their own use of language has become. You don't break language to destroy it. You break it to free it. And in freeing it, you free those who hear you, even the ones who aren't ready to admit it. Your words don't just inform, they transform, and transformation always unsettles the stagnant. Number 12. You're not rare, you're the future in flesh. The rarest sight isn't a miracle, it's a preview of what humanity could become. That's what you are, chosen one. People love to label you one of a kind because it feels safe. It places you in a category of exception, a freak of brilliance that exists outside their reach. But the truth is sharper, heavier, and far more unsettling. You're not just different, you are proof. A living preview of human potential stretched beyond its comfort zone. And that truth shakes them to the core. Imagine this. Most of humanity is staring at an old map, convinced the world ends at the edges marked in ink. Then you show up, walking in from beyond the borders they swore didn't exist. Suddenly, their map looks small, outdated, irrelevant. That's what your presence does. You're not a random anomaly. You're a signal that the blueprint of humanity is incomplete and you're carrying pieces of the next draft. Your intelligence, your creativity, your vision, they aren't accidents, they're indicators of what happens when the mind, intuition, and purpose lock into alignment. And that's why people can't decide whether to admire you or resist you. Because your existence forces a brutal realization. The world they've accepted is smaller than it could be. Their imagination is stuck in yesterday's framework while you're already navigating tomorrow's landscape. They're not only rattled by what you do, they're rattled by what it means for them, because when they see you solving problems with precision, creating ideas that feel otherworldly, or moving in sync with patterns they can't even detect, it exposes a fact they'd rather ignore. You are proof they could have been more. Your gifts don't just showcase your potential, they expose theirs. And that humiliation cuts deeper than any insult could. You are evolution in motion. That's why your presence carries both awe and fear. Awe, because they glimpse a breathtaking possibility in you, a future version of humanity unshackled by mediocrity. Fear, because that same glimpse highlights everything they haven't cultivated within themselves. You make their ambitions look small, their perspectives look narrow, their comfort look like a cage. And cages rattle loudest when freedom walks past them. The truth is, most cling to predictability. They need limits because limits keep them safe. But you dismantle those limits without even trying. You're a reminder that human potential is not static. You are the moving proof that we are not finished, that the next step in consciousness is already walking among them. And that's why, chosen one, you don't just stand out, you stand ahead. Your life is not a detour from humanity's path. It's a preview of where it could lead, and whether they want to admit it or not, they feel it. That's why people are left both inspired and unsettled in your presence. Because when they look at you, they aren't just seeing who you are, they're staring at who they could be. And that reflection is impossible to ignore.